Ahoy there, friends! In this episode of Sailing Britaly, you join us on our honeymoon as we set sail from our base in La Spezia on our first ever offshore cruise to the French island of Corsica. You'll see the Italian Riviera by air, and we'll talk to you about how we felt making our first ever night passage at sea, which I'd describe as interesting. You'll then see the start of our trip on the beautiful island of Corsica. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's go back to our wedding day. Rossella and I were lucky enough to get married in this church. We spent the most perfect day with our family and friends, and it was the happiest day of our lives. Our honeymoon was going to be a huge adventure for us. We'd never sailed offshore before, and we'd never even sailed before at night. We had originally planned to sail down the east coast of Corsica, but with easterly winds forecast, this would have been very exposed and open to the waves. So we instead decided to head around the western side of the peninsula, where we could anchor in the sheltered waters. We estimated that it would take us 24 hours to get to Corsica, so we decided to leave in the late afternoon. This meant we could leave in daylight hours. During the hours of darkness we'd be in the middle of the sea, and then we'd also have daylight again when we arrived at our anchorage. We'd made our plan, so we prepared the boat and ourselves, and then we made some final passage plans on our paper charts. Before we knew it, it was time to cast off the lines and head out to sea.
Ciao capitano.
Shortly after leaving, we passed a headland and then turned to starboard, into the bay of Portovenere, in which is the church that we just got married in a week earlier. The only way to appreciate the true beauty of this place is to see it in person. But seeing it by air is also breathtaking. I can't describe our emotion as we passed right next to what we now considered our church. It was so exciting that from this point onwards we were sailing out into the open sea on our biggest adventure yet. The sense of freedom that you feel as you look out at the horizon from your boat on a course that you've chosen is indescribable. There can be few things on earth so liberating. As the sun drew lower in the sky, we imagined what it would feel like to sail through the night. I wasn't worried because I'd checked online and the moon was going to be 75% that night. Rossella asked me, "What do we do when it gets dark? How do we see?" And I said, "Oh, don't worry about that. There's 75% of moon. We'll see for miles." In reality, this wasn't true, because I'd made a rookie mistake. Can you guess what that was? Have a think about it, and I'll tell you what it was that I did wrong in a minute.
Ciao marinaia.
Ciao. 3.3.
Brava.
As the sun went down, I was excited and anxious in equal measure. I wasn't only a husband, but I was a skipper too, and this trip was my idea. I was responsible for our safety and for the safety of our boat, and I had made a fundamental error. I had checked the phase of the moon and had seen that we had 75%. What I failed to do was check the moonrise time, and the moon didn't rise until 3 o'clock in the morning. With the sun setting at 9 o'clock at night, we were in for an extremely dark first ever night sail. We both stayed in the cockpit all night, doing 2-hour shifts on watch. Geographically, we were perfectly safe, as we were in open sea, so there was nothing for us to hit. However, as novice sailors, we were a little bit terrified of hitting a submerged object such as a container, and hence we were extremely happy when the moon rose at 3 in the morning. As the new day broke and the sun rose, our mood changed and we were already laughing about our tense night. Seeing a new country appear on the horizon is such an exhilarating experience. We couldn't wait to arrive and start exploring. We had already made memories that would last us a lifetime, and we hadn't even arrived yet. The anchorage looked perfect on the chart, with protection from the easterly winds. but we didn't think it was going to be as beautiful as this. We launched our homemade folding tender and started to explore what to us seemed like paradise on earth. We had dreamed of owning our boat for years before we were able to get it, but now it seemed that all our dreams were coming true in a spectacular way. We were both a little tired after our 23-hour passage, and we took great pleasure in watching the sunset from the bow before going asleep on our first night at anchor in Corsica.